Tonight on Joynews Prime, Ghana's Supreme Court's decision to dismiss the NDC's relief for the use of the existing voter's ID card continues to draw mixed public reaction after an earlier misinterpretation of the court's ruling by the General Secretary of the NDC.
The court has just delivered a verdict which has granted our request for the inclusion of the existing voter card as breeder document for the compilation of the register.
I mean, clearly, it's only a person who perhaps did not have an understanding of what the court said today who could make such a conclusion.
We have details as Deputy Attorney General fight off claims government is behind the Electoral Commission's decision to compile a new register since the NPP had always wanted a new electoral roll. Also coming up, is Ghana at the peak of coronavirus infections? National Coordinator of the Coronavirus Response Program says no.
When do we think it will peak? And really the true answer is I don't know.
All right, and if you don't want to be a statistic, rush to the hospital when you experience minor COVID-19 symptoms. This is because 60% of all COVID-19 related deaths in Ghana happen within 48 hours of patients' arrival at the health facility.
More than 50–60% of all the deaths occur within 48 hours of admission.
And coming up later on in business.
Yes, I will be telling you how a Ghanaian flag vessel with 6 crew members got attacked off Benin coast.
Part of a One Village, One Dam project currently under construction in the Upper West Region town of Domini, washed away by torrential rains less than 2 weeks into its construction.
We really are in need of the dam. When they came to start the construction, the entire village was very happy. This is, if it is fixed, it will be a major source of water for the community.
My name is Gifty Andopia. We are live in our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. On digital terrestrial TV, we are free to air. The bulletin is also live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV 144. Please stay with us. You're welcome to the details of those stories and more. Now, the Supreme Court has in a unanimous decision ruled that the Electoral Commission's decision to exclude the existing voters' ID is valid. The court also said the Commission has the power to compile a new register and can go ahead with the exercise slated for June 30. Private citizen Mark Techi Benson and the NDC had asked the Apex Court to stop the Electoral Commission from compiling the register or allow the use of existing voters' ID card and birth certificate. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
The Commission in its legal argument stated that the existing voter register, which was compiled in 2012 and revised since by limited exercises, has been held by the Apex Court as not being reasonably credible. Deputy Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame urged the Apex Court not to impede the EC's quest to obey the law. The 7-member panel that heard the case was presided over by the Chief Justice Kwesi Yeboah. Other panel members are Justice Jones Doche, Paul Bafuboni, Sule Gbadegbe, Samuel K. Mafusau, Nene Amegacha, and Professor Ashikote. The court in its decision held that the EC is an independent body and will only be directed by the court if it acts contrary to law. It said the Commission can carry out the registration exercise in accordance with CI 126. This CI excludes voter ID card and birth certificates, but allows the use of passport and a Ghana card as source document for prospective voters. The NDC, Edwin Ketia, however, had this understanding of the decision.
The court has just delivered a verdict which has granted our request for the inclusion of the existing voter card as breeder document for the compilation of the register. And I think that we are most grateful. I think that this is the most substantive issue for which we came to court. So we will get back to office and we will address a full-blown press conference on the consequential matters arising. Thank you very much.
How does it make you feel, General?
Well, we feel vindicated because the court itself, in an earlier ruling, has clearly stated that the possession of an existing voter's ID card means that the holder is a citizen of Ghana who is qualified to be registered and to exercise his or her powers. And so the court couldn't have gone back on its own earlier ruling. And it did also admit that the right to vote, once it accrues to a person, cannot be taken back in a whimsical and capricious manner in which the Electoral Commission sought to do.
There is currently just one case before the courts in relation to the compilation of a new register. This is the case filed by Ashaman MP Ernest Nogbe, which is pending at the High Court and due for hearing on Monday, June 29.
Joseph Akable with that report. The Attorney General's office has been speaking on this judgment. A Deputy AG Godfred Yeboah-Dame says the NDC clearly does not understand this decision.
For me, it can only advance democracy in the country, in the sense that the very sense of democracy is the protection of the right to vote, the right to the people to elect their representatives, to elect their president, in accordance with the hallowed principle of one man, one vote. And I sought to indicate at the last agenda that indeed the voters register has been shown to be over-bloated, and it has been so since 2012. And it was so again in 2016. It was also, it is so presently. So it has been so since 2012. And if you look at 2012, the declaration of results, the number of registered voters, as declared by the Electoral Commission, was about 14.1 million people. But the total number of Ghanaians over 18 years was, as per the statistics of the Ghana Statistical Service, 13.7 million. So the very obvious question one ought to ask is, how can the number of Ghanaians aged 18 and above, who I consider to be the registrable population, be less than the number of total number of registered voters? That is incongruous. It cannot be. And the same pertained in 2016. The number of registered voters was about 15.7. Yet, Statistical Service indicates that the total number of Ghanaians aged 18 and above is about 15.2 million. And you remember that the NDC also was making the point in court that there is supposed to be about 80 million people on the voters register. That was unsubstantiated and totally baseless, because the evidence for the Statistical Service, which I furnished the court, indicates that the total number of Ghanaians aged 18 and above is 16.6 million people. So where from that figure? They just threw it up in the air without backing it up with evidence, and that's what the people of Ghana were made to believe. And so I think that the court ruling is very good. It protects the right of the Ghanaian to vote, in the sense that it shows that clearly it is intended to ensure that only Ghanaians who are qualified to vote indeed register to vote.
In terms of the ratio of the court, it affirmed the independence of the EC once it's not acting contrary to law, and again gave orders as to compiling the register in accordance with CI 126. I'm sure you have seen what the NDC's General Secretary has been saying. Are you surprised with the interpretation that has been put on the decision of the court, and what is the AG's position on the decision of the court? I'm
totally amazed at the ridiculous interpretation that has been placed on the court ruling by the NDC, especially NDC's General Secretary. I mean, clearly, it's only a person who perhaps did not have an understanding of what the court said today who could make such a conclusion. It is quite clear. They have the ruling of the court before me, and you have to just match it against the specific reliefs that were sought by the NDC. And you see that clearly, in terms of the substantive reliefs, they're all dismissed.
And we'll be doing a matching of the specific reliefs and what the court said. But for now, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, is jabbing critics who he says are misinterpreting the judgment by the Supreme Court in the NDC versus EC case. According to the majority leader, the ruling by the apex court of the land is clear, and it affirms the EC's position as stipulated in the CI 126 passed by the House.
To me, what I'm seeing here is what I believe is the truth, and this is certified from the Supreme Court. It says, with particular reference to the second relief that they sought in respect of including the old voters' ID card, the Supreme Court was unanimous in this, that the relief is granted subject to the fact that all eligible voters must make themselves available for registration as directed by the Electoral Commission pursuant to Public Elections Registration of Voters Amendment Regulations 2020 CI 126. As simple as that. What is contained in CI 126 is that they are saying they are going to rely on the Ghana cards, that is the Identification Authority cards, and passports. That's what is contained in that. So if the court issues this ruling that it should be pursuant to CI 126, who in his wildest imagination will go outside this ruling to say that, oh, the old voters' ID card has been included? The facts speak for itself.
Majority Leader Osaiche Mensah-Bonsu there. The minority spokesperson on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Inusa Fuseni, says the ruling by the Supreme Court is a victory for Ghana's democracy. He's insisting that granting of Relief 3 of the NDC subject to CI 126 means the existing voter's ID card must be admitted as a primary document for registration.
The NDC went to court to pursue certain reliefs. NDC was put to an election. NDC chose Relief 2. Relief 2 was based on something. And Relief 2 by the Supreme Court has been granted. The Supreme Court decision grants Relief 2. That was what we pursued in court. We didn't go to court to ask the Supreme Court to uphold CI 126. NDC did not go to court for the Supreme Court to uphold CI 126. NDC went to court and said that, look, if you look at the voter registration exercise to be carried out by the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commission by CI 126 is seeking to remove from the list of primary documents for identification the existing voter ID card. And that existing voter ID card, which is issued pursuant to CI 91, derives its foundation from CI 42, and read together with CI 51, vests in the Ghanaian an accrued right. Immediately you are registered in Ghana, you have an accrued right to vote under Article 42 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court said, yes, we'll grant you that. What does it mean? Yes, so it means that, it simply means that CI 126 and the primary documents listed therein are relevant for the registration of voters as the decision to grant the accrued rights. That's all.
Inusa Fuseni there. Well, the Electoral Commission says it is all set for the registration to begin and nothing less than identification mentioned in the Constitutional Instrument 126 will be accepted on Tuesday, June 30, when the process begins. A statement issued a few hours ago by the election regulatory body said all stakeholders should prepare for the exercise next week. And here are excerpts of that statement. It says the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision today, Thursday, the 25th of June 2020, dismissed the cases brought against the Electoral Commission. The Supreme Court directed the Commission and all its stakeholders to comply with Articles 42 and 45 of the 1992 Constitution and CI 126, Public Election Registration of Voters Amendment Regulation 2020. The statement goes on to say, for the avoidance of doubt, CI 126 spells out the requirement of proof of identification for the purposes of registration. It states as follows: 3. A person who applies for registration as a voter shall provide as evidence of identification one of the following: A passport; 2. B, a national identification card issued by the National Identification Authority; or C, one voter registration identification guarantee form as set out in Form 1 of the schedule that has been completed and signed by 2 registered voters, and A, by the substitution for sub-regulation 4.4. Despite paragraph C, it goes on and on. A registered voter shall not guarantee the identity of more than 10 persons. Essentially, the number of people someone can help to register. It goes on to say that as a commission which believes in the sanctity of the law, we respect the decision of the Supreme Court. In the words of the courts, the Electoral Commission, in exercising their discretion in the charge of their constitutional mandate in cleaning the voters' register, should be deemed as authorized to be acting within the law and regulations therein. And so it's the Electoral Commission takes this opportunity to assure its stakeholders that the voters' registration exercise will start from Tuesday, 30th of June 2020 to the 6th of August 2020. The Commission entreats all stakeholders to hold themselves in readiness for the voters' registration exercise. It finally adds that the Commission will enforce strict safety protocols at its registration centers across the country so as to protect applicants from the COVID-19 pandemic. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. It ends, and it is signed by Sylvia Ano, Acting Director of Public Affairs. Early on today, private legal practitioner Samson Ladi Ayinene said the Supreme Court's ruling is clear and unambiguous in pointing out the fact that the registration for the new voter roll will be done without the existing voter ID card.
Now, as the discussion we had, back end, if you look at what the NDC asked for in the courts, just look at 2 of the most important things they asked of the courts and ask yourself whether those 2 important reliefs were granted or they were dismissed, denied, or refused.
Okay.
Once you answer that those reliefs were not granted, but they were dismissed, denied, or refused, therein is your answer and the summary of all this needless controversy. And the summary is that Electoral Commission is to go ahead with its registration exercise using the CI that has just been passed in Parliament. And let's not waste anybody's time. Bottom line, the court says, Electoral Commission, you had planned to do a voters register process. Please go ahead and do the voter registration exercise. Use the CI, constitutional instrument, which Parliament just passed, to do it. What does that CI say? It says you must use your Ghana card, you must use a passport, or you must have a guarantor. Simply, this is what it is. So the EC is going to go ahead in the manner that it planned, using the CI that it got Parliament to pass. End of story.
And as it were, the Electoral Commission says it is beginning the process next week. So here is a summary of the reliefs that Samson mentioned, the reliefs sought by the NDC and the responses that they got from the Supreme Court. So relief 1 says the NDC wanted a declaration that the EC can only compile the register once and has no power to prepare a fresh register. The court says withdrawn by plaintiff and so struck out. Relief 2, the NDC wanted a declaration that EC's power to compile review register must respect and protect the right to vote. Court says yes, but subject to what the new CI 126 says. Relief 3, the NDC wants a declaration that upon registering and being issued a voter ID card, a person has an accrued right to vote, which cannot be taken away in an arbitrary and capricious manner. The court says yes, but subject to a voter ID issued under the new CI 126. And Relief 4, the NDC sought a declaration that all existing voter ID cards are valid for identifying persons in the exercise of the right to vote. And what did the court do? It denied that relief. Relief 5, declaration that the new CI's exclusion of existing voter ID cards as proof of identification is unconstitutional and a nullity. The court denied. Relief number 6, the NDC sought a declaration that EC excluding the existing voter ID cards from proof of identification is arbitrary, etc. The court denies that. And Relief 7, a declaration that proof of identification should not be limited to what the new CI says. The court denied that one. And Relief number 8, NDC sought an order that the EC must include all existing voter ID cards as one of the documents serving as proof of identification. The court denied that one also. Time, flag bearer and leader of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, shall address the nation on the Supreme Court's ruling on the matter of the compilation of the new voters register at 8:30 p.m. We'll be here to bring you that live as and when it happens. Moving on, Inspector General of Police James Opon-Bueno has served notice to political actors who have plans to disrupt the upcoming general elections to ditch those plans or face the wrath of the police. The IGP is advising political parties that feel aggrieved during the electoral processes to only resort to the laws that regulate the country's electoral process and not to resort to lawlessness, he said. Mr. Opon-Bueno was speaking at a meeting with executives of political parties today.
No, some 15 political parties represented by founders and national executives attended and contributed to the meeting. The political parties include the governing NPP, leading opposition party NDC, the CPP, and 12 other political parties. They pledged to operate within the law.
We actually have been assured by the Inspector General of Police that the previous brutalities we have seen, unprofessionalism by the police in some of the circumstances would not be witnessed again.
We pointed out certain issues that are happening now that, if not well addressed, can compromise the peace.
The IGP has given us assurance for the political parties as well as the nation that all infractions leading to the election before or after will be addressed.
IGP says whoever flouts the law during the electioneering period will not be spared.
The stakes are always very high when it comes to elections because everybody wants to win. As a result, some acts of lawlessness, such as snatching of ballot boxes, intimidation of voters, attacking voters or electoral officials, destruction of electoral materials, occur in some countries. Let me assure you that we will be ready to deal with whoever perpetrates any of these actions.
The IGP also warned political parties to stop obstructing justice by organizing supporters to mass up at police stations when one of their own is arrested.
Organize supporters to mass up at police stations to extend solidarity to arrested colleagues, friends or persons invited by the police for questioning. This, I must say, ladies and gentlemen, offense against the law. Because that actually obstructs the lawful execution of the police, the work of the police. I know that obstruction of a police officer is a criminal offense.
I pledge myself in all things to uphold and defend the good name of God. So help me God.
Welcome back to Joynews Prime. Let's head home to Sandra. Sandra, what's in business?
Hello, Gifty. Welcome to my home. Yes, we're getting some reports that some pirates had hijacked some fishing vessel that belongs to Ghana. And so we'll be hearing from authorities as to specifically what they know about this incident. And welcome to business. My name is Sandra Estinam. And reports say pirates have attacked a fishing vessel and seized 6 crew members, among them 1 Ghanaian. The vessel was attacked off the coast of Benin, according to news sources. The report added that these pirates kidnapped 5 South Koreans and a Ghanaian after boarding their fishing vessel off the coast of Benin. So let me just once again run by you what we know so far. There's a Ghanaian among the 6 crew members that were hijacked, and then a vessel was attacked off the coast of Benin. It's a Ghanaian flag vessel called the Panofi Frontier and has about 30 crew members on board. The Ghana Port and Harbour Authority, they're trying to get to them to get some answers. And then I have Chief Superintendent Joseph Entry Abebiu, Commander Marine Ports and Railways units of the Ghana Police Service. He will be giving us some answers. If you haven't, sir, good evening and thanks so much for your time. Okay, so while we try to get him back on the line, I was saying earlier that we have some bad news where a fishing vessel that belongs to Ghana with 30 crew members had been hijacked off the coast of Benin. And then we have been joined, thankfully, by Chief Superintendent Joseph Entry Abebiu, Commander Marine Port and Railways units of the Ghana Police Service. Thanks so much for your time this evening, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Can you confirm or deny this report that we are getting?
Yes, I can confirm that I have also heard there had been attack at the fishing vessel at the port markets of Benin.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yes. Can you repeat that again? I didn't quite get you.
I said that I can, based on the report that you are mentioning, I confirm that I've also heard that a fishing vessel was pirated at the waters of Benin.
So what more can you tell us about this vessel? We understand that it has 30 crew members. And then what this actually means, does that mean that if some people have been picked off the vessel, does that mean that we'll not have it back in Ghana? Or when are we expecting it back in Ghana? And what do we do from there? Looks like we're having some issues connecting with Chief Superintendent Entry Abebiu. Let's move on to do other stories related to the Maritime Authority. And the Managing Director of the Ghana Maritime Authority, Thomas Kofi Alonso, is asking for public support to enhance the work of seafarers who risk their lives on the marine waters. He says the coronavirus outbreak has placed much pressure on the operations, hence the need for support. He was speaking at a media event to celebrate this year's World Seafarers Day in Accra.
Seafarers Day is celebrated every 25th June by United States member countries to appreciate the contribution of seafarers in their country's GDP. This year's event is under the theme, Seafarers are key workers, essential to shipping, essential to the world. Managing Director of the Ghana Maritime Authority, Thomas Kofi Alonso, said seafarers must be given the necessary support and recognition for their hard work.
Under normal circumstances, the Day of the Seafarer campaign is organized to demonstrate how much seafarers matter to us. On those special days, social events and activities are organized to honor the enormous sacrifices they make for our comfort. With the unprecedented situation of the current global pandemic, this year, the Day of the Seafarer campaign calls for the recognition of seafarers as within the context of the coronavirus pandemic. It also advocates for seafarers the provision of support and to ensure that seafarers are given the recognition they deserve for keeping the world moving in these trying times.
He underscored the need for recognition for their selfless dedication towards economic growth, especially in the wake of the global pandemic.
In these challenging times, seafarers have been the unsung heroes of this pandemic as the world relies on them to transport about 80% of trade by volume, including vital food and medical goods, energy and raw materials, as well as manufactured goods across the globe. As they continue in this heroic profession, they have become collateral victims of the crisis, as travel restrictions have left tens of thousands of them stranded on ships or unable to join ships.
The Day of the Seafarer campaign is focused on paying tribute to seafarers during this COVID-19 era.
Let's go back to our earlier story and speak to Chief Superintendent Joseph Entry Abebio, who is the Commander Marine Ports and Railways Unit of the Ghana Police Service. Grateful having you back on the line, sir. I was asking earlier, if you can hear me, where do we move on from here? Does that mean that we're expecting the ship back in Ghana? And then, because we understand that 30 members were on board, so now that 6 have been kidnapped, are we expecting this ship back in Ghana and when?
All right. Good evening. Thanks for having me again. Yes, the Ghana Navy has set sail to the distressed vessel and bring it back to the port. And when they are able to arrive at the port, probably tomorrow morning, then we'll go in and do with the crew members, and we'll be able to give actual account as to what happened and confirm the number on board at the vessel, and we'll also be able to state categorically which people, the pirates, their makeup and their nature, and how they were able to enter the vessel. Meantime, all the information that you have said, that's what we have also heard from the various maritime media portals that we have. But we have to get there and do the briefing before we'll be able to confirm all those facts about it.
And talking about getting details, have you been able to contact anybody on board, or what has it been like? Were you able to get somebody, or having difficulties reaching any member on board?
Yes, we are having difficulty getting anybody on board because normally when pirates attack like they normally disturb all the communication equipment that the vessel have so that they will be able to communicate to other people. But the Ghana Navy has already set sail to meet that distressed vessel, a fishing vessel, and bring it to port.
Right. If I may just ask you, what's the current state of the country's vessel management system? How are you able to communicate or receive information?
So normally, the maritime domain, we use AIS system to communicate with other vessels, and then those are the various institutions that monitor our maritime domain. So that is what we use now.
I'm asking because I want to know whether it's in good shape, because we've had some reports in the past that the country's vessel management system is not in a good shape. So I'm just wondering how you're able to communicate with these people.
No. Aside police, Ghana Maritime Authority is the lead agency for this maritime security, and they even have an advanced version of. Apart from the AIS, they also have a vessel traffic management system, VTMS, which also the other security agencies have it, and that can also be used to communicate with other people. But aside that, military, marine police, Ministry of Fisheries, they all have AIS systems that they use to also communicate with vessels.
All right, Chief Superintendent Joseph Entry Abebio, Commander Marine Ports and Railway Units of the Ghana Police Service. We are grateful for your time this evening. I will certainly come back to you tomorrow to see if the ship actually will arrive or it will arrive as expected. But that's how we end the first part of business. I'm certainly back after 8 p.m. with more business news updates. My name is Sandra Esinamapin. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back. Some more news here. Ghana has recorded 460 new cases of COVID-19, taking the total confirmed cases to 15,473. With recoveries at 11,431, the active cases are now at 3,947 and deaths remain 95. 6 patients are in critical condition. 4 of them are on ventilators and 24 have severe cases. 60% of all COVID-19 related deaths in Ghana happen within 48 hours of patients' arrival at a health facility. And that's according to Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaje. This means people report too late and they report when they are severely sick to the hospital for treatment. Dr. Patrick Abuaje has been analyzing Ghana's COVID-19 deaths in this country.
Of late, we've had the issue of the deaths. So we are looking at the weeks. Majority of the deaths have come from Greater Accra and Ashanti. That's why the map is targeted in that way. You could see that we've had some spikes in week 22 and week 23. By week 24 and 25, which is the week we are in now, the number of deaths has remained roughly about 3 in a week. So that's how it is. So if you see the uploading of 15 or 10 cases, it's not because they just happened that week or that day. These are some of the after the review. So after the review and looking at the date of death, this is the presentation that it shows. So we saw a little spike in week 22, and now there's been a decline. Of the cases who are critical, majority recover. We've had about 36, there's a facility that has received 36 people in ICU, and only 3 had died. The rest of the 33 had actually recovered and gone home. So critical doesn't mean death. Now if you look at the next slide, you could see this is the time of death from that time of admission. That's more than 50–60% of all the deaths occur within 48 hours of admission. And these are the people who report to the facility very, very late.
The Ministries of Trade, Employment and Labour Relations are developing a monitoring mechanism to enforce the adherence of safety protocols at workplaces. This follows revelations by the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaje, that workplaces are becoming the breeding ground for infections in recent times. He says some media houses and mining companies are seeing more of these cases.
Yes, I think it's a great worry, as has been said. And most of our current cases have come from that area, and that's why we've been working hard to ensure that these things are applied. I may not be able to give you the total numbers because some are small. They are quite a lot. We have them at mines. We've got some oil and gas companies that have been affected. We've got some other areas of some government agencies have also been had fallen to some of these things, and even some media houses has also had such outbreaks. And so, but the most important thing is how do we apply some of these protocols to ensure that, because you see, moving from your house into that area definitely means that it poses a threat, because it's like you may go to a place where you have about 200 people working.
Dr. Patrick Abuaje there. Well, the Trade Minister Alan Kyerematen outlined the measures to reduce the spread at workplaces, including steps that are being taken to enforce compliance.
With the pandemic, it is absolutely critical that all industrial establishments ensure that they have these PPEs for their workers. And then also the replacement of safety gear which are compliant with PPEs. And then checking of temperatures of all employees and customers. Now, these are regular existing protocols that are being observed in many of these industrial establishments. But we are also proposing enhanced restrictions, which we believe are critical if we want to keep our industrial establishments safe.
Mr. Kyerematen has also been giving some updates on the production of PPEs by local companies for onward free distribution.
So currently, we have 5 large-scale Tier 1 producers. We have 23 Tier 2 producers, and then we have 31 Tier 3 producers. And we'll continue developing the capacity of these local producers. And obviously, we want to fully integrate the production of these PPEs in terms of the use of local fabric. And so we have 2 major, 3 large-scale fabric producers, those who produce the fabric, or what we call material in Ghana, or textile. And these are producing fabric for the garment producers. So in terms of production volume, so far, To date, we've produced 6.2 million face masks. Our target is by the end of July this year, we would have produced 14.6 million face masks just from these local producers. And then we produced 90,000 hospital gowns, 90,000 head covers, which go with the gowns. And
Trade Minister Alan Chemating there. On the global front, the World Health Organization is warning that hospitals are facing a shortage in oxygen concentrators needed to support the breathing of COVID-19 patients who are suffering from respiratory distress. According to the WHO, 1 million new cases of coronavirus are confirmed worldwide each day. Director Gabriel Jesus has been demanding he says that demand is currently outstripping supply. And let me quickly go home to Oreku Ampofo, who has sports up next for us.
Thank you, Gifty. And we do start from the local front, where the Social Security and National Insurance Trust NET is threatening to take legal action against the Ghana Football Association after being shocked by the latest revelation made by the local football governing body. 3 days ago, the GFA presented the data that is directly involved in the employment of over 70,000 Ghanaians that feed into the socio-economic architecture of the country. Now, according to the GFA's competitions, employ a total of 70,672 players. Given the breakdown as 1,019 players for the Premier League, the Division 1 League sees 2,353 players, and then the second and third division have 43,700 players. Now, the Women's Premier League contribute to 600 players, and the juvenile leagues have a big number of 23,000. Now, the numbers have left SNIC shocked, according to the National Coordinator of SNIT player registration. And they are asking that the GFA produce their SNIT numbers, else should be ready for a legal battle. Now, he was quoted saying that we have written to the GFA to demand the data of these players of all the Premier League clubs, but there was no response. We are happy they have released the data themselves. Hence, we will go there with their own data to give us details for us to register them. He then went on to add that we have registered only 15 out of the 18 Premier League clubs, and we planned on going to the Division 1 League clubs afterwards. After the GFA presidents released their data of employing over 70,000 workers, we were stunned by the numbers, hence suggesting that they produced their Senate numbers. He also added, we had taken earlier legal action against Ashanti Gold, which was later settled out of court, and is constant that we will take legal actions against the GFA if they do not heed to our advice. So we'll be providing you with the latest on that story and what happens with SNIT and the GFA.
And some more news on coronavirus. The National Coordinator for Coronavirus Response Program, Dr. Anefi Asamoah, has told Parliament his team cannot predict when Ghana will reach coronavirus infection peak. The Ghana Health Service in May said Ghana had reached its peak, a claim that was fiercely challenged by many analysts, including Center for Democratic Development's fellow Dr. Kwame Asiedu-Sapong. Dr. Anefi Asamoah said for now, Ghana's infection peak cannot be predicted.
Given the trend, when do we think it will peak? And really the true answer is I don't know. This is a really tricky business, and it's very easy to misquote somebody. The trend is still going up, and it's very difficult to really say in a matter of, I need to be a pastor or prophet to be able to do that. The third question was related, are we still having challenges with PPE? And the answer is yes.
On transparency in the fight against the virus, Dr. Asamoah assured the team will continue to be more transparent, especially with cases concerning people who have died of COVID-19 and testing.
It is imaginable that there are some deaths that we are not capturing. The good thing in Ghana is it's very difficult to hide adult deaths. For children and babies, yes, but for adult deaths, it's very difficult to hide. But the message we get from you is that we need to do whatever we can do to make sure that there's a lot more transparency when it comes to not just the data on deaths, but the data in general. That will improve the credibility and the trust in what we're doing.
Well, meanwhile, the National COVID-19 Response Team is also announcing a decision to halt targeted testing. According to the Presidential Advisor on Health, Dr. Anthony Nsia-Asare, mass testing is not the panacea to eliminate the virus from the country. He adds that mass testing does not make economic sense as the implications on the country's purse is too huge to bear. This is in response to calls by some members of parliament on the floor for mass testing for the citizenry as reported cases surge.
If you continue having the corporate testing, it means those who are sick, who are in the hospital, who need to be tested, have to wait. And it blocks the hospital up, and that's where sometimes people say that the hospitals are overwhelmed. So if you agree with us, I think the first testing has been done. Subsequent testing, let us go strictly according to either you are exposed to somebody or you have signs and symptoms. Luckily, you have a clinic here. Dr. Pambo and his people are there. Anytime you have a problem, just rush to the hospital. And if you have the signs and symptoms which fit into the definition of the case, you will quickly be tested. And when you are tested and you are found to be positive, then all your contacts will also be tested. That should be the case, and that is how we are doing it. This is the way that we are going.
Dr. Nsia-Asare also entreated members of parliament to be ambassadors to support the government's efforts by intensifying health education at the various constituencies and rural communities so that we can win the fight.
What we are seeing now is that it's not like before where we had a lot of patients who don't go through hospitals but are contact traced in their districts. So what it means, we are seeing more relatively people who have symptoms than before. So it means that the fight is a fight that we should all join. We have what you call local transmission. So it's in the community transmission. And as members of parliament, I believe that you are the right people to assist in the fight in your various constituencies, because you are the representatives of the people.
And that's Dr. Nsia-Asare there in Parliament. Now, strands of hair in the nostrils are enough to block the virus from entering your body. This may sound ridiculous to you, but that is the belief of some residents of Aveno, a community here in Accra. They have refused to wear face masks and they are insisting hair in the nostrils will shield them from the virus. There is more in today's Joynews Combating Fake News Project story by Henry Kwesibedu.
Wearing a clean face mask is a global public health recommendation to halt the spread of coronavirus. This, according to health experts, stops the transfer of fluids from one person to another, breaking the chain of the virus. At Aveno, I meet 26-year-old Kofi. He tells me he has stitched the face mask.
Like, maybe nose mask in the no like what I say. Me pay nose mask. I know they like. Me pay ankasa. And I mean she been suda.
Kofi says the hair in his nostrils makes him immune to the coronavirus.
Like
God created a nasal passage and its hair such that it protects us from all impurities, including viruses.
Nose masks I know they like. Yeah, I know they like.
He adds that the more the hair in the nasal cavity, the lower your risk of acquiring the virus.
Is that true? Yeah, it's true. True,
I have lots of hair in my nostrils and don't believe the coronavirus can enter my body through my nostrils. The reason I don't wear a face mask.
I know they like, yeah, I believe. That's my belief. Yeah, Mijidi says, like, our purpose, ain't in Yankopon boy, no. Or boy, send like a cover free and Yaman Kitty, like, you who ever call him, the what I say. You know, me, I believe with that.
And until this go for movie players or
me believe no. Yeah,
those with lots of hairs in their nostrils are immune to the virus.
Yeah, onya virus ni bi. Onya bi.
The marks in the audio.
There be marks in the nyande amehye kra.
We say kra ma hote.
There be me ho kra ira me. Ah me hu se obi hye kra na me ho tete me. Yeah.
Kofi is not the only one who holds this view. In this video footage, a passenger on board a trotro makes a similar claim. But is hair in the nose enough to ward off the virus? We have been speaking to Professor Alfred Yosin of the University of Ghana Medical School.
The hair in the nostril passage, the nostril hair, is protective and it has natural benefit for the human being. It filters the air that goes into and warms the air as well, so it has biological functions. However, when you are dealing with tiny, minute germ like a virus, which you cannot see and it's only seen under a special microscope, it is certainly not true that the hair in your nostrils can prevent the viruses getting into the body.
Stay safe and help halt the spread of coronavirus. Henry Kwesibedu's report for Joynews.
You certainly want to wear your mask. Now, part of a One Village, One Dam project currently under construction in the Upper West regional town of Domini has been washed away by torrential rains less than 2 weeks into its construction. Contractors working on the project have told Joynews they would fix the damage, but worried villagers who were hoping the initiative could solve years of water problems in the area are concerned the poor nature of the project may cause the dam not to last. A report by my colleague Justice Bedu.
It is the farming season here in Domini, and all hands are busy tilling the land at this time. This dam used to be a major source of water for the villagers until its breakdown more than 10 years ago. Several promises to get it fixed in the past failed to happen.
For ages, this has been a place that is dear to the hearts of many people here in Domini. Is a pond that used to host crocodiles that people in this village believe to be their totems. Not only was it a major source of drinking water, it was also the major backbone to farming activities here. And when One Village, One Dam came in to fix the dam, they only thought it was going to be for the better.
Where I listen to the cut off the water lock, it rained 2 times. When it rained 2 times, well, that was in the evening, the day before yesterday in the evening. We got to realize the sound of the water. The dam was just, we were hearing some noise. That was early morning yesterday. I came and I saw that the dam cut off.
The embankment is made up of compacted laterite dug out from the dam area itself. Rainfall patterns in northern Ghana could be severe, and the structure will be at the mercy of the weather. Already in under 2 weeks of its making, the cracks are deep and many, showing gaping holes all over.
We really are in need of the dam. When they came to start the construction, the entire village was very happy. This is, if it is fixed, it will be a major source of water for the community. We will be using this same water to do our dry season gardening. We will want to use the same water to do our construction. Building and other activities have loaded the few boreholes that are within the community.
For people here, like 51-year-old Deku Men, this dam could be a game changer. His maize farm lies on the side of the part of the dam that has been washed away.
When
I heard that government was going to construct this dam, I was so happy. All I was hoping for was quality work. Our assembly member was involved, and we all were looking forward to the best.
So
I am confused and desperate at the same time. I really have high hopes for this dam, but now in this state, I do not think it will serve me that purpose, and that makes me lose interest in this farming work.
MCE for Laura, Martin Bomba-Ire, told me in a text message that he has visited the area and would get the contractor to work on the damage. But this is not the first of One Village, One Dam project to report such defect. Joynews in a series last year reported similar stories on other dams in the Upper East region. In Domene 2, residents wonder if this dam would stand the test of time. Justice Bedu, Joynews, Domene in the Upper West region.
Here in the studio, I am Gifty and Apia. I'll take you again to the Ashanti region. A heartbroken and frustrated pastor whose wife was stabbed to death along with his daughter, who was also wounded by armed robbers at Impetia near Kumasi, is reluctant to share his experience, insisting it will make no difference. Pastor Francis Eduse argues previous victims of such attacks in his neighborhood never secured justice as the perpetrators remain untraced. His pregnant wife, Juliana Eduse, died from multiple stabs by 3 armed and masked men who attacked the family at dawn last Saturday. The tragic incident brings to 4 the number of people, mainly women, who have died under similar circumstances in the area. Nana Asensu Mensah has more in his report.
31-year-old Juliana Eduse, who was 7 months pregnant, gave up the ghost when the armed men reportedly turned the axe on her at their residence at about 1:30 a.m.
So at about 1:30 a.m. on Saturday, family of 3 were fast asleep in this house. The house you see in your screens. All what they heard was a knock on the door. So the man came to check who was knocking at that ungodly hour, only to find out 3 armed robbers. They bounced on him and demanded some cash. The man was reluctant to issue the cash to them. So in the process, they stabbed his 6-year-old daughter here at the abdomen. His pregnant wife also rushed to save the daughter, and the armed robbers also stabbed the pregnant wife at the right side of her neck.
She had attempted to rescue her daughter from the grips of the assailants and paid with her life as the robbers made away with cash of $1,000. Pastor Eduse, who is yet to come to terms with the situation, will not speak on record on a visit to his residence, though he indicates he feels let down by the system. He insists on remaining tight-lipped on the heinous crime because others in similar fashion remain unresolved.
Upie kura na adeɛ yɛm hyehyɛ na ato biara so ɛsɛ menua baako wɔ ha ɔsɛ wɔn deɛ obetu kura fira ha a ontumi ntena ha efisɛ deɛ ha sitie no ɔka so wɔtena ha deɛ ayɛ nua no saa na obi betumi ade bi nso ayɛ de ato no so to ontumi ntena ha ti ade hu ato yɛ so paa wɔ emra yɛ wɔ ha yi.
So what this man is saying that he's a resident in this vicinity, and what happened over the weekend has really scared them. And he and his family, they can't even go out at night. So they are living in fear, obviously. So they want authorities to come to their aid. That's happening here. Let me also speak to one lady here and find out how she's also faring over here about the situation. Ma'am, your friend saying?
Mami Vida.
Mami Vida, what's your name? Okay. Sena, a dear, Sena, who been their boat or Hanum?
In fact, the few home dear, Mintimina, my 2 free and Mokra Mintimina, Miss Ro. I have papa.
It's all down here.
As I does this away, Mintimina, die with Miss Ro.
I am a resident here, she says. Because of what happened over the weekend, I'm really scared. I've moved from my house and now I'm living with a neighbor because I fear the robbers might also attack me. We are pleading with authorities to come to our aid to boost security in this area because we don't feel safe. We are scared. Residents are in a mix of fear and rage as they feel unsafe to continue living in the community. Assembly member for the area, James Safo, blames the heightening insecurity in the area on the poor road network that links the community to Santase and other communities. He says police night patrols to the area, which has witnessed repeated murder of some women, have ceased as the result of the poor road.
First naka patrol team baho. Nanzo so enam say ye kwan no different Santase be man betia nyina kwan ni nyini no ama patrol team no so ema.
At first, the police used to patrol this area to ward off criminals. But because of the poor roads, the police patrol have stopped coming here.
This year, a year of road. A year of dust.
Meanwhile, a police station constructed by the people through self-help remains unused. Residents want authorities to act to curb the menace. Nana Asensu-Mensah reporting.
Nana Asensu-Mensah's report there. We are still watching Joynews Prime with me, Gifty Andopia. We'll be taking a very short break, but before that, we do know that former President John Mahama and flag bearer of the NDC is gearing up to speak, and we'll be joining him with that when it starts. We'll get there as and when we have it. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Joynews Prime. Now, the ingenuity of a trotro driver who climbed a footbridge with his vehicle following brake failure averted what could have been a disaster at Tech Junction in Kumasi. Social media pictures of the vehicle on the pedestrian walkway attracted public anger and condemnation at what was considered an act of indiscipline. Joynews checks, however, reveal the unidentified driver rather earned praise from those who witnessed the incident for saving lives. My colleague, Ohim Interior, has been following up on this story.
Social media has been agog today with pictures of an urban bus parked on the Tech Junction footbridge, indicating drivers plying their trade around the Tech Junction have turned the footbridge into a driveway. We have been speaking to eyewitnesses, including this evangelist, who tell us the driver behind the wheels of this particular urban bus lost control after failing brake. In order to save lives, he decided to drive towards the footbridge because there were lots of people around here.
I was standing here in the morning preaching, and I raised my head and then saw the car coming. When I observed the way it was coming, the speed was not the normal speed, the way they drive cars here. I knew that something was wrong with the car. So I moved from this side to this direction, and all of a sudden the car got through this place. When you look at the way the driver was looking at this place, he was looking for a place where there are no people. So looking at this particular place at that time, there was nobody coming from this place. I think this is what actually caused the driver to drive towards this direction. This is my first time of seeing something like this. If it is to be a time where people are normally coming from the steps, something else will have happened.
We have also been speaking to the station master, Isaac Oponajaman, who dismissed allegations drivers have turned the footbridge into a driveway.
Now we had the car ne banana and yet normal a year the baha ever load on ever. It is well like any fan so any hacker say. By now a funny afano. Nam to the power of current. Never knew who say or honey right a year or far every day. Ever no or they four as rosa a TDNB. National today green. The station of my AS 1479. If you say you could attack you do the first time, you who visa any car be for a strong that. If you say more food bridge, I can't be no half for that.
Police at KNUST have launched investigations into the matter, promising to investigate to bring the recalcitrant driver to book. From Kumasi, Ohim Interior reporting.
The typical example of not believing everything you see on social media. So on social media, the story is told differently based on what is seen, but on the ground, it was absolutely, totally different. Well, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says government is in the process of transferring manual data of the births and deaths registry into electronic forms as part of measures to digitize the country's births and deaths data. Once completed, the database will be integrated into the National Identification Authority database to ensure that a national ID is generated for every Ghanaian from birth. Dr. Bawumia said this when he paid a working visit to the births and deaths registry here in Accra this morning.
We have begun the process over the last few years of digitizing the operations of the births and deaths registry. And so far, they are moving all of the data that they have manually, the paper data, into electronic form. So far, we've done almost 80% of movement of all their records into electronic form. And by next year, God willing, we would finish the entire record. And, so there's a digitization process taking place. The business processes have also been automated. And just 2 weeks ago, the hardworking Minister for Local Government, Hajia Alima Mahama, came to Cabinet and got approval for a new births and deaths registry bill that will be submitted to Parliament, and we will therefore see a decentralization of the operations of the births and deaths registry. So that will really help as we digitize and decentralize. Once we move into next year, we are going to be integrating the births and deaths registry, the database, with the National Identification Database, so that once you are born, you get your births and deaths registered online from wherever you are in the country. And NIA should also be able to issue you a national identification number at the time of birth. So you will not have your card then, but a few years later, you'll have it. But your national ID number, your births and deaths register will also flow through to your SNIT, to your NHIA, and all of that. So we are doing that whole integration next year.
Next year, Chair's Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia there, and I'm going back home to Sandra Apeno with more news and business. Hi, Sandra.
Hello, Gifty. Yes, we have to do more business, and we're hearing that borders will be opened. And then also the West African government ministers are also proposing that we open borders. How is that likely to affect businesses and then also travel? That's what we'll be talking about in business.
Sure.
Welcome back to the second part of business. West African government ministers have proposed reopening borders between their countries in the first half of July and allowing in travelers from other countries with low or controlled levels of coronavirus spread by the end of July. Countries across the 15 ECOWAS trade bloc have imposed varying levels of travel restrictions in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. But with Ghana's case counts on the rise, are we ready for a reopening? That's the question I asked the coordinator of CART International, a policy think tank, advocate Apia Kusia-Domako.
I think at the regional level, ECOWAS is leading an interministerial effort to get all borders open in a phased approach. So starting from 1st of July, they want all borders to be open for goods. And then on the 7th of July, is also countries should start resume domestic airlines. And then by the 31st of July, they expect movement of goods and passengers across all borders. However, there's a caveat. ECOWAS wants member countries to ensure that the opening of the borders that do not result in the surge in the crisis. So if, let's say, between Aflao and Lomé, there's a high incidence of the virus, they want countries to take measures to prevent the surge of the virus. So there's a lot of measures but I think that it's very good to see the borders open to enhance trade, because there are some goods that we in Ghana will need from Nigeria and other goods that Nigeria also needs from Ghana. So opening the borders will allow international trade to flow, and people will be able to sell, and economic activities will come back to the pre-crisis level. I think whether or not at a point in time we would have to open the borders by ensuring that we have protocols to go about. Currently, the cases are surging up and keeps on surging, and the president has not ordered the mass lockdown of the country. And so we should be able to go about our normal activities by ensuring that everybody complies with the social distancing, the hygiene, and all the other protocols. So I think we can allow the borders to be open and ensure that people who are coming in go through the required safety checks. And possibly we can start with some special corridors. Not all the. Let's say Ghana and Togo, we can only decide to allow only one pathway to be open so that we can monitor everybody coming in, because we cannot remain closed forever. Certainly not.
Now, it's been 2 years since two steel factories at the Free Zones enclave in Tema, Radar Steel and United Steel, received series of warning from the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, against air pollution. There have been series of checks by Joy Business following these factories not complying. The Environmental Minister paid an unannounced visit once again to these factories, threatening to shut them down if they do not comply in a week time. Charles Aite was our man on the ground, and he's come through with the following report.
Joy Business has extensively covered how these factories pollute the environment and share abandon despite regulations from the Environmental Protection Agency. Paying a welcome visit to the Free Zones enclave, Professor Kwabena Frimpong directed the various companies to work with the Environmental Protection Agency to rectify the anomaly, given a week's notice.
Issues with pollution. If you come to the factory, the external system is not working. There's a lot of fine dust in there that has coated the face of most of the workers. So we need to do some work here. And I think EPA will have to come and sit down with them and make sure that they do the right thing and that people who work here are not polluted, they don't get sick, because they are all liable to serious lung infections and so on. So that's where we are. I think the HR manager will take care of what you are saying. And we are not joking with it. The EPA will come here, sit down with you, and if people are not supposed to stay here during the night, because if it's not allowed, it's not allowed.
The visit is to familiarize himself with the operations of the various steel factories and to check on their level of compliance with air quality standards and other environmentally related issues.
We installed, they did it and they checked. That time it was working. Now since every time the scrap changes, the system airflow changed, so things change over a period of time. So they have been telling us to do a new one, which we have already told them what we are doing the new one. That's going on. Plus, EPA has been, we have been monitoring and submitting reports. Every month we have a monitoring done. Today itself, they are doing the smoke and environmental monitoring. 6 or 7 machines are already fitted somewhere.
The various companies have been given a week to present a work plan and roadmap towards rectifying existing defects in their air quality systems.
Today is Thursday, and you know what that means. PM Express Business Edition. Our guest is chairman of McDan Group and business mogul, Daniel Macaulay. Let me give you a taste of what to expect tonight.
I don't think anybody who sits under my feet, or I give the person my shoulder to stand on, will be a failure. Because I'm never a failure, and I won't be a failure. So if I coach you and you fail, and failure is in your DNA.
You talked about one critical thing. That's something I want to push further, that engaging some of these entrepreneurs, the problem was not capital, but mentoring, more of technical support.
Yeah.
Is that really the case? Because every young guy you meet on the streets, like, George, can you help me fund this thing, do this, I need money. That is, I found that research or that findings based on this whole entrepreneurship challenge is very interesting, because you meet some of these guys, they have everything. They believe that capital is the 100% solution to their problem.
Not at all. That is the mentality, but that is not.
What is the reality on the ground?
The reality on the ground is they have been lazy mentally. and they always want to be rich as at yesterday. You see, word creation is patience. Word creation, building your business, you must have some level of consistency. And also integrity plays a role in there. Most of them don't need money, depending on the business you choose. I can give you many examples of some of the businesses I built. Some of the boys I had helped, I did not help them with money. I helped them with contact and relationship. But what I want them to keep your integrity high. I mean, without integrity, you can never get anywhere. Consistency is also a key factor in here. So I can pick many businesses and tell you that, look, I can turn you into a millionaire if you can keep your integrity high.
Daniel Macaulay will join us at 9 p.m. on the Joynews channel on Multi-TV and channel 421 on DSTV. You don't want to miss this because the discussion will be on the impact of COVID-19 on angel investors. Time now to check out what's happening in the commodity news. That'll be all for business tonight. Log on to myjoyonline.com/business for more business news updates. Let's do the same time tomorrow. I'm saying bye-bye from my home.
Sandra, do say bye-bye, but keep praying for Liverpool because I understand they are the crossroads.
We have already won, Gifty. Just congratulate me. I'm trying to take a lot of congratulatory messages on TV, so you can do yours now.
Really? We'll see about that. Sandra, thank you. Sandra Esinamopene there, who joined us all the way from home. And we'll be going to the NDC headquarters where former President John Dramani Mahama and leader of the party is seeking to speak on the Supreme Court's decision earlier today. We're live on the ground this evening, and we'll bring you that live as and when it begins. I will take you right now to the NDC headquarters where leader of the party, John Dramani Mahama, is about speaking on the Supreme Court's decision today.
Ambiguities. That the very Supreme Court, which has a primary responsibility and duty to throw light and to interpret to avoid absurdity, itself will give a ruling which consequence is absurdity. And therefore, the only person who can calm nerves and get Ghanaians committed to the pursuit of the entitled and guaranteed rights under Article 42 is no mean the person than John Dramani Mahama. I have the singular honor to hand over the mic to him to speak to the country on this matter. Mr. President, Excellency.
Thank you, my brothers and sisters. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, Earlier today, the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana gave its ruling in a case brought by the National Democratic Congress against the Electoral Commission of Ghana over its decision to compile a new voters register. Despite the well-reasoned reliefs we sought, the apex court of our land has given a leeway for the Electoral Commission to go ahead with the exclusion of the existing voter identification card from the list of identification requirements for the registration for the register. My brothers and sisters, we're deeply disappointed and we strongly disagree with the court over this outcome, which has confounded many legal experts and indeed has thrown the whole country into a state of confusion. Our legal team is examining this decision even as we await the full reasons for this judgment. It is also worrying that the court deferred the reasons for its decision to the 15th of July, a date by which time the EC would have been 2 weeks into the said registration exercise. My brothers and sisters, throughout its history, the NDC has stood strongly for an inclusive democracy. That is because our party is built on the principle that no one should be left out in the governance process of Ghana. This principle may be seen through the various programs and projects upon which our democracy is built. The composition of the Consultative Assembly, which prepared the 1992 Constitution, the consultations for the review of the Constitution in 2010, which stands out as the most comprehensive consultative program in our history and the history of the sub-region, just to mention a few. The MPP tradition, on the other hand, has since the founding of our nation always stood for an exclusive governance structure, a structure which seeks to leave out the ordinary men and women of our country, a structure which rather favors only a select elite few who consider themselves as owners of the nation. To ensure this, the MPP has, since its assumption of power in 2017, consistently put in place measures which seek to systematically disenfranchise eligible citizens of this nation. Such measures include restricting the identification mechanism for voter registration to documents which are not accessible currently to millions of eligible Ghanaian voters. We have been very clear in our minds that the decision to compile a new voters register was in pursuit of this long-held agenda, hence our efforts to stop the wholesale attempt to exclude vast sections of our population from the process to determine who leads them. This represents the handiwork of a desperate incumbent that, on account of its very poor performance in government, sees its very political survival only through the prism of manipulation of the electoral process to exclude a section of Ghanaians who they suspect may not renew their mandate at the polls. A caring Compassionate and responsible government would not push us to the brink at a time of a major pandemic such as COVID-19 that is causing so much anguish amongst our citizens. It is deeply regrettable that the Electoral Commission, which should be independent and has carved a niche for itself as a well-respected commission in the whole of Africa, has today made itself a willing tool in the execution of this most diabolic agenda. The exclusion of the old voters' ID card, which has been used to conduct several elections under the current leadership of the Electoral Commission, and from which the current president derives his mandate, is aimed at deliberately disenfranchising some Ghanaians who have falsely been branded foreigners without any basis. The restriction of primary identification to passports, Ghana cards, and the resort to guaranteeing for others is a ruse to create frustration in the hope that it will discourage millions from registering, and in the process, it will give advantage ab initio to a bungling and inefficient incumbent. The Ghana card, which has been made one of two identification documents, has not even been fully rolled out. As we speak, these cards are still being issued with no mechanism for verification. The National Identification Authority, the NIA, has itself admitted to duplication of thousands of these cards. Therefore, the NDC's decision to go to the Supreme Court was informed by the party's time-honored belief and commitment to an inclusive democracy as opposed to the MPP's exclusiveness. However, it was obvious from the outset of this struggle that inclusive democracy was not going to have a hearing, even against the resounding calls by the National House of Chiefs, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and various trade and professional groups. My brothers and sisters, the right to vote must, however, not be curtailed on account of this minor setback. We cannot throw our hands up in despair because the fight to insist on inclusion has been temporarily derailed by this ruling of the Supreme Court. We can still make our voices heard, even if we must endure some inconvenience and frustration. To achieve the objective of taking part in the decision over who governs us, we must be willing to make the necessary sacrifices in the present circumstances. I therefore urge all Ghanaians of voting age to channel the disappointment at the effort to exclude them from the electoral process into an opportunity to have their voices heard and turn up to register in their teeming numbers when the process begins next week, Tuesday. The NPP and the Electoral Commission are very much aware that the exclusion of the existing voters' ID will significantly slow down the process of registration and create the real risk of people massing up outside voter centers. But this is what happens when politics is put before the people. While at it, let us keep safe by adhering strictly to all the COVID-19 preventive protocols such as social distancing, the wearing of face masks, among others, particularly because of the increasing trend in the number of infections and deaths recorded in our country. And I pray that the Almighty God should protect all our citizens who come out to exercise their constitutional right to register from any sickness or infection by this disease. The process may be made deliberately slow and painful, but I encourage you all to endure insofar as it will enable you to vote out this government that has masterminded this frustration in the first place. We must always be willing to hold leaders accountable for bad decisions that impose difficulties on our citizens. And this is one such clear opportunity to do so. Do not let the several hours you may spend at the registration center get you to surrender your right to vote. If you do so, that will only embolden those who seek to disenfranchise you. To the few who have passports and Ghana cards, please make use of them and register. And to those who get the opportunity to register, I implore you to assist your brothers, your sisters, and compatriots by guaranteeing for them, even if it takes a bit more of your time. Please see this as a civic duty and your contribution to the efforts to preserve the right to vote. This way, we will undo the grand conspiracy to deprive us of the inalienable right to vote, and we will, in the process, send a clear signal that it is only we, the people, who will decide who gets the opportunity to lead this country, and not governments we elect or state agencies who make themselves pliant accomplices in their attempt to disenfranchise us. My brothers and sisters, this is not just an NDC fight. It is a fight to rescue the very soul of our beloved nation from the hands of those who seek to impose their will unjustly on our people. Our forefathers founded this nation with the motto, freedom and justice. It is clear today that never in the history of our Fourth Republic have these two lofty ideals been in such short supply. I salute all the diverse organizations, civil society organizations, prominent chiefs, organized labor, religious leaders, professional groups, and all well-meaning Ghanaians who have rallied around this cause to demand that the right thing be done in the larger national interest. I call on all Ghanaians who yearn to see a change in the governance of this country to rise up and be counted, for where there's a will, there's a way. No politically engineered register can save this failed government. From the judgment of the people, from the inevitable defeat that awaits them in the next 165 days. With or without a new voters register, the NDC shall win the election by the grace of God. And I leave you with this famous quote by Emperor Haile Selassie. And he said, throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most. That has made it possible for evil to triumph. I thank you for your kind attention.
Lord bless Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Both
That's the leader and flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, talking about the Supreme Court's decision today. He says it's a handiwork of a desperate incumbent that's willing to manipulate the electoral process because they suspect the electorate will not vote them back in power. He's talking about doing so in a pandemic, and he says that the process will be slowed, and he believes that the NPP is doing so to make people frustrated so that they don't continue. But he's asking all Ghanaians to arise and be counted. He says everybody should go out there to register on Tuesday, and those who cannot register, other people who can should vouch for them. You can get this on our YouTube link as well. Make way for PM Express right now, but you just heard from the former President John Dramani Mahama speaking live from the NDC headquarters. My name is Gifty Andopia. We've taken a bit of time already of PM Express. Let's go right now and take that. Thank you.